Well, good evening, everyone. This is Writing on Air on KZFR 90.1. Thanks for all of you for tuning in tonight. This is going to be kind of a really cool show. We're having another call-in today, the second one we've ever done for the show. But before I get to that, as I said, this is Writing on Air, and we take basically any type of writing and have people submit to us whatever they've written. And then beyond the show, you usually get their own show. And we pretty much like to not critique, but appreciate it. So I have my co-host with me here tonight. Natalie, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you, Kevin?
I'm very well, very well. And we also have Kim Peacock. How are you doing, Kim?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, I'm super excited. I've known you for about 5 years now, Kim, so this is going to be really cool. And you wrote a book called Victorious Heart, Finding Hope and Healing After a Devastating Loss, which I read, and my, I guess, synopsis of that is that was one of the most profound books I've ever read, and great job.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, and to preface it before we dive into you, this is about a devastating loss. You lost your daughter, I don't actually remember how many years ago it said in the book.
It's 20 years this year.
20 years this year. Wow, okay.
Yeah.
Whew. Well, we're going to get to that content in a second, but Kim, tell us about yourself.
Well, I'm Kim Peacock, and I live in Middle Tennessee now, but most of my life I lived in beautiful Southern California, and we decided to make a change about 5 years ago, and we live in a log house in the middle of the woods. So it's completely different than California. I have 6 kids and 6 grandkids so far, and counting.
I don't think I even knew that information. Holy crud. And I've seen your guys' house in Tennessee. I've seen pictures with like Jonathan and stuff, and it is beautiful.
Thank you.
Both your houses, the one in SoCal and the one in Tennessee, are very amazing.
Thank you.
Okay, so this show is going to be a packed show, and I'm really glad we were able to wait until now to do it so we can give you your own really nice, relaxed show. And this one's going to be interesting because usually I shoot from the hip and just kind of ask the questions that come to my mind.
Yeah.
Natalie sarcastically says yes. And I think it gives it a nice quality to the show, but also...
I appreciate the structured format of this show.
we Natalie and I have different views. She likes the structure. I like the chaos, I guess.
I'm with you, Natalie.
Thank you.
Oh, no, it's 2 versus 1. Okay, so for this show, we have a list of questions we're going to try to get through that I think give a really a nice, tangible kind of look at what you've written, Kim, and what you've given the world, because this is a really profound book. So we'll start with the first one. Tell us about your book. This is where you can describe kind of the contents of what it is, because I think you are the best to do that, and why it's so important to you.
Well, Victorious Heart is about our family's journey, like you said earlier, through the loss of a child. That's a parent's biggest fear, is losing a child, and we were faced with that. And it's something that we shouldn't have survived. In all logical way of thinking, I never believed I could survive it. But this book is about how we not only survived it, but how we experienced hope and healing through it and in the midst of it. And to me, that was the most profound thing that's ever happened in my life, that we were able to not only survive, but really to thrive through it.
Wow. Any thoughts, Natalie?
Just the idea of thriving in times of grief. My immediate thought is, how exactly did you do that? How did you find a way? Because I can't even imagine that kind of loss in my life.
Yes, I think for us, we have a strong faith in God, and I do believe that God gave us the strength
for sure
to that, because I think that for me, I'm a big wimp. I can't make it through even just the simplest of hard times on my own.
Yeah.
But I feel like every moment we had to give that to God and say, okay, what are we supposed to do with this now? And it really is a moment-by-moment journey.
Yeah.
It's not something that, I could have never guessed on this side of it how it would have looked throughout it. And there were some very, very low points, but there were also some very amazing points where we found purpose in what we had to experience.
Yeah.
So I guess the short answer would be just moment by moment, every one little step at a time through the whole process.
Yeah. I think that's so smart, just taking little tiny steps and little tiny moments and breaking it down.
Mhm.
Just in
Yeah.
surviving anything, that is actually how you get to thriving. And wow, I admire that answer so much.
Yeah.
Thank you. And I do believe that loss is loss. I mean, for us,
Yeah.
my biggest fear was losing a child, and I was faced with that. I had no
Yeah.
control over that. But we all experience different types of loss,
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
you know, whether it's another family member, a close friendship. It might even be a loss of a dream, something that we've
Yeah.
worked for all of our lives, and then all of a sudden it might be ripped out and from underneath us. And so we have all of that causes us to grieve and have sorrow.
Absolutely. I kind of just had this immediate thought of like large losses in my life. I suppose that outsiders would look at as reputable grief, in my opinion, that, you know, like, oh, that's somebody you lost, versus little losses. Like, to me now, relationships that I've lost aren't as tremendous as people that I've lost in my life. And but the feeling was the same.
Yes,
So yeah,
exactly.
and like even the death of a dream now, I can still remember feeling much the same kind of grief in that way.
Yes,
So
yes.
yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah, I completely agree as well. Just even through life and different things that I thought life would be, my expectations of life,
Yeah.
it still takes me through the same process.
Yeah.
And really, I don't believe, in the beginning I thought, oh, this kind of grief is worse than this kind of grief or whatever, but I don't believe you can compare grief at all.
Yeah.
We all experience it, and it just hurts.
I really feel like in some ways those little griefs in our childhood and little things like that that we grow up with, they kind of prepare you in the long run for those
Yes.
larger ones that come along. At least in my
Yeah.
opinion, things that I have.
No,
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
Very well said.
Thank you.
Yeah, when I read your book too, actually I'll back up a second. I think there's a lot of things in this world that people need to talk about and don't. And I think grief and healing over a loss is something that needs to be talked about. So one of the most profound things I experienced when reading your book was the ability to walk through that with the reader. You started off where you began, the initial loss, and then move forward at a really just steady pace on in your life, basically through the book. And as a reader, I got to experience that. And that is something that I think is extremely remarkable, because it doesn't just make leaps of logic and do these random things. It shows you exactly where you were in those moments. And that was a very intense thing for me to read, and really profound, Kim.
Thank you. And I felt like that was important because like Natalie said, those little baby steps, that's how you make it. And if you don't kind of take the reader through those steps, I feel like it's not a progressive healing.
Yeah.
It's kind of you're jumping all over the place. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah, that
yes.
totally makes sense. Like even thinking of my own writing, like I think that's where I've always gone wrong, is just jumping full force
It's easy
into
to
the
do.
story. Yeah. How did
Yeah.
you stop yourself from doing that? Was that difficult?
Well, it was very difficult, and the book took me about 7 years to write, and it was very chunky at first, if
Yeah.
that makes sense. It was very chunky, of those things where I thought, oh, I've got to really talk about, say, holidays and how hard that was.
Yeah.
But I really felt myself being compelled, no, slow down, and I had to really literally slow myself down. And I would write kind of on the surface, and then I have a friend that would read it, and she goes, no, you need to go deeper. And I'm like, go deeper. And she goes, I need more detail. She even said, I need to know the kid's hair color. I need to know, you need to take us there.
Yeah.
So it has, as a writer, I had to really slow down and assume that, and to realize that everyone who reads my book doesn't know me, and they need to understand the journey.
Yeah. Wow. Well said yourself. That's amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah, man. Okay. There's so many things I want to tangent off to.
Yeah, I'm so inspired.
This is so good, Kim.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Just by your process alone, and just what you've been through and how you processed your grief is
and
incredible.
And I mean, honestly, the control throughout the book, like
Yeah.
your pacing that you had through it was perfect, I think.
Mm.
So if anyone's listening to, the book's name is Victorious Heart, Finding Hope and Healing After Devastating Loss. And we'll, towards the end of the show, we'll detail where you can find this book and where you can acquire it.
And we'll put that
Mhm.
information on our Facebook page
Yes, yes. That will
Oh,
all
great.
be readily available for everyone, so you guys can access this too.
Mm.
But I wanted to segue into the next question, which is we talked a bit previously, and you expressed you wanted this book to be helpful to other people going through grief. Can you explain that a little bit more?
Sure. After Nicole passed away, I remember looking for parents that have lost children, and I would look intently at them, and in wonderment that they're even walking around, that they're even existing. And to me, and I'd ask them these questions. Well, how did you make it through this? How did you do this? All of these specific things. Even memorial service. What did you do? How did you honor them? How did you make it joyous yet you were still hurting? All of those questions. And so as I went through and I would look at these people and just glean little things off of their lives, it inspired me like, okay, I can do this. I can survive this. I can make it through. And so that's my hope with the book, is to be the same light that I was able to gather from a lot of people. And to be able to go, okay, no, there is hope. And also to let people know that they're not alone.
Yeah.
Because that's a big deal. When you're hurting, you feel like, I'm the only one who feels like this. I'm the only one who's hurting this bad, who knows the depths of, because like Kevin said, we don't talk about death. We don't talk about grief or pain like that. We don't like to look at it, but I do believe that we need to, everybody needs it. So that was my hope for the book, is if people can read it and know, no, I'm not alone and I'm going to survive, that's my biggest passion for the book.
That was very well put. Just the isolation you feel in grieving and being able to talk about it. There's something here in Chico that we hold, and I believe since across America they have these things called death cafes where you can get together and talk about grief and talk about death and speak about these things, which I didn't know it's culturally abnormal to talk about.
Yes.
For me and my family, it kind of is normal to talk about because it's something we've experienced as a large family over and over again. But I realized like people do feel really alone in these times. And what you said about gleaning off of others and seeing that people survive through this, it's so true. Like I have a friend who I went to her brother's funeral and I had seen the mother there and she'd lost 2 children now, and I saw her and I just thought like, how are you doing this? And she just seemed to be, I looked at her and I thought, man, where is this coming from? And I love that you said that you want to be a light like that to show people that you can survive this, you can, because some people really don't, and it's very true that they just don't ever come back from that kind of loss. So yeah.
Kim, I think I'm gonna jump around a bit on the questions because I'm reading through them again,
No problem.
and there's a few that I think are as far as the interview is flowing along. I think I wanna single this one out really quick. Do you feel different after completing this book? Because I mean, you said it was a long journey to get here, to finish this, like 7 years. Like what after finishing it? How do you feel about this?
I do feel different. I thought that grief was something you got over. And even when I started writing the book 7 years ago, well, a little over 7 now, but I thought at that time, well, grief is something you heal from, and you do get healing. I don't want to make it seem like, oh, you never gain healing, but it's a constant process. But you don't get over grief. And what I realized through the writing of the book is that grief becomes a part of you, and not in a negative, morbid way, but in a beautiful way. And because of that, you can embrace it, and it actually enriches your life. It's not something, okay, like you have a broken leg and it heals and you're good as new. It's more that you embrace that part of you, and that you miss that loved one, or even if it is the loss of a dream or, loss of a relationship, those things that have hurt you deeply, you can embrace those, but then it brings beauty to life. And I think that's the biggest thing for me, is to realize the beauty part of it and how that is so important to realize, and it brings depth to life. I can stop, I believe I can stop and enjoy my grandkids or the beautiful sunset more because of Nicole.
Ugh.
Because we don't have her right now. Now, I do believe that she's in heaven. You know, I believe that I will see her again. But because that she was part of my life, I believe that gives me depth and that gives me richness in my life.
Yeah.
So I really believe that's why I'm different now.
Yeah.
That's where the hope comes from.
Wow.
Man.
It's like a radiance to even
Yes.
your speech and your explanation of having known one way and knowing another now.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people, when they deal with a grief or a loss, or really, I guess, just any negative emotion, they there's always a sense of like rejection of it, like pushing it away, not experiencing it, not feeling it. And I have never really understood that. After reading your book, I really resonated with a lot of your points, because it's your book. It never really at any point, although as you detail through your grief process, there might have been points that this was, I guess, made known to the world, but you never really fully rejected it. It was more of I need to figure out how to make this part of me because it is, and I don't want to reject this because rejecting it would be pushing away your connection with your daughter, which I don't think would have been healthy, and neither do you, I would imagine. And so the way you kind of detail that entire journey through the book was, I mean, I was on board with every second of it, because it was beautiful to me. There was kind of a sense of, not necessarily, well, in a way healing, but also in a very large way growing, because this had to become part of you in order for you to be able to function and move forward and understand life as it was now.
Yes, exactly. And you can't, I know that none of us like to experience pain, but we are going to experience pain. This life is hard. Things happen. And unless we learned how to walk through that, not push it away, but walk through it, it's just, we're going to become bitter and weighed down because it's still there. Yeah. And so it's just going to hang on us and drag us down through our lives. And not only that, it's going to render us useless. We only have a certain amount of time here, and then we're not here anymore. So I want to be purposeful and useful. Now, it wasn't always as plain and easy for me to say as it is today, because there was a lot of days I'm like, forget this. I'm not doing this. I'm going to stay in bed. And that, I believe that also is a normal part of grieving. You just gotta, you gotta wrestle through those hard things.
Yeah. Oh, this is actually a perfect segue. I'm really glad you mentioned that. In your book, a lot of books that detail personal events and stuff kind of just talk about it as a story the entire way through. But you had a really interesting writing feature, which I super was on board with. I thought it was amazing. You had, and I'll let you explain this, but I'll preface it. You had what were called grief notes at the end of every chapter that I thought were a really nice act of basically telling people that you can self-love and be okay with feeling what you're feeling, and then how to kind of just walk through that. Tell us about that, writing, putting those in. Like, what was the decision that made you kind of stamp those in there at the end of each chapter?
Well, in the beginning, my purpose, I didn't want to just tell the story of what we've been through. Even though it might be inspiring, I also wanted to give practical tools. And but I wasn't really sure how to do that. And when I had submitted my book for the final edit to the publisher, I explained that to them. I said, but I don't really know. And they said, well, maybe you could do a sum up at the end, do a summary at the end. And it just really brought so much clarity. Yes, and because when you're hurting, sometimes it's hard to focus. So I just thought if I could just do grief notes at the end, just to sum up, these are practical tools. If it's during the holidays, these are some practical tools you can use, practical ways that you can manage through the holidays, or, through the firsts, or different things that you struggle with. So at the end of each chapter, those are summarized there under grief notes. And that's for the griever. And I also included a section at the end of each chapter that says loving them well. And that is for the friends and family. so I have a lot of people ask me, how can I help, my brother who's lost someone dear? What am I supposed to say at the funeral? What am I supposed to do? And loving them well just gives some practical advice, of different things that family members or friends can do to help the griever. Yeah. So it was really important that whoever reads the book can walk away with some practical tools. And I'm not an expert, but these are things I know what helped me and I know what didn't help me. Mm-hmm. So it was really important that I was able to express, well, these things helped me, and give yourself room to, heal in the way that best suits you. So that's why I summed it up that way.
So this book is for people going through the grieving process and also for people trying to assist people who are going through the grieving process?
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah.
That's amazing that you're providing tips too for people, and that, because that situation can be hard.
It is. And again, I'm no expert, but I do know what helped me. And I was really blessed to have a very good group of people around me to love me, and they did love me well. That's why it's titled that. Yeah. They loved me well. They were there. They didn't expect a lot out of me. They didn't really expect me to respond in any certain way. They just walked through. They were there. Yeah. And the kitchen was clean. I didn't ask anybody to clean the kitchen. It was just clean. Those kind of things were really important. So because when you're hurting, that's the last thing you want to think about is, all of those little details that we have to take care of.
Oh, for sure. Okay.
Yeah, those moments. And again, just to preface it for anyone tuning in now, this book is called Victorious Heart by Kim Peacock, Finding Hope and Healing After a Devastating Loss. But in that book, those moments really affected me a lot. Just having like a few points in time, you just mentioned, there were times you came back to the house and just something in the house was clean that you would have had to do later. Kind of like those friends and family that were kind of invisible but present and warm the entire time was just, that was an amazing experience.
They literally carried us through those days. They literally carried us. I don't know how else, how to describe it, but without them, it would have been a lot more difficult.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Kim, I'm going to probably have to skip a few of them because we're actually getting close to the end of the show. So let me look through this real quick. Man, this is such a good conversation, and this book is so good. I wish we had like a few hours to talk about it because we could dive in so much. I guess as far as writing the book goes, what was one thing you really liked, or one thing I guess that was a challenge in overcoming it? I mean, it doesn't have to be one. It could be as many as you'd like.
I think the biggest challenge for me was allowing myself to go to the deep, hard places, because it would be easy to gloss over the feelings that I experienced, especially the chapter on Nicole's accident was very difficult to write. As a matter of fact, I just did the general details, but then, I had to go back and fill it in a little bit at a time because I had to go back there. Emotionally, I had to be there. I had to experience those emotions. And, it definitely would be tempting to gloss over it or to just kind of sanitize it, but that would be not doing justice to the book or to the story or even to Nicole's life. And also the reader wouldn't be able to then know that I understand what they're feeling. And so I think the hardest challenge was going to the deep places, going to the hard places to be able to express myself.
That takes a lot of courage to write, and even just to accept that ultimately that is a part of her life, and to go back and to give it the time and the justice that it deserves, because that is a place in her life, is how she passed away. And so I appreciate that, even like as a human being and as a writer, but more as a human being. To me, death is such an important part of our lives that we just tend to try and pass away itself and deny until it happens. And so the fact that you, in your writing, after the fact, looked back and took the time that deserved is honorable.
Thank you. Yeah, it was a challenge, but afterward, it was healing.
Yeah.
You know, it definitely brought a lot of healing to my heart through it.
Yeah.
Well, we're rounding up the last 5 minutes of the show, and there's three things really, but the third one will be where to find your book. So I'll ask these two next questions, and I'll kind of lump them together. And however you want to answer these, no worries, as quickly or as long as you'd like. So the first one is going to be, as far as writing a book goes, one piece of advice you would give to other writers, and as far as grief goes, what advice would you give someone going through that process, aside from buying your book and reading it, because it'll have much more details than this last answer, I'm sure.
Okay. I think as far as a writer, if you feel compelled to write a book, you need to just do it. You need to push through the fear and through all of the what ifs and push through and start writing. And I do believe when I started writing every day, that was helpful, because I was fearful that I was not qualified, that people wouldn't understand my story, I wouldn't do it justice. That was where the fear came in. But I also tried to say, okay, when I get more time, well, you're never going to have more time. Mm-hmm. So I would just encourage anybody to just write every day, and then it will start coming together. And that's what happened with me. It's not a fast, you're not going to write a book in 30 days, or not one that has a lot of depth to it. So that's just my advice with that. And with people who are grieving, I would encourage you to give yourself space to grieve in the way that you feel is best for you. There's a lot of expectations on, the stages of grief. And I know that those are real, and that, there are some merits to that. But I also feel like a lot of times we feel like we have to live up to the expectations of what other people think. Well, they should be over it, or they should be doing this. And in my book, I do go into that a lot more. But give yourself space and grace to grieve the way you feel called to grieve.
Mm-hmm. This entire interview was so cathartic for me, because I felt this way for so long. It feels like I've met a kindred spirit, and
I'm so glad.
Yeah. I keep telling people, lean into these emotions, and you don't have to the full 24 hours a day, but take some time at least every day. Mm-hmm. And, you'll find yourself spending less time ruminating over certain things, and then you'll find yourself enjoying your life even more in different ways. Ugh.
Yes.
Thank you
Very
so
well
much.
said.
Yeah.
You're welcome. This has been a blessing to me, for sure.
Me too.
Well, for my final thoughts, if I can go ahead and say this, I think Nicole is proud of this book, Kim, because the event that happened and everything that you've walked through has made you just an amazingly kind, warm-hearted person. And the book not only felt like a journey that I got to experience, but it also felt like love towards me and anyone reading it, which I think is really hard to capture as a writer and as a human in general. I mean, very well done, Kim. This was amazing. I think your book is absolutely phenomenal.
Thank you so much. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
And to segue into that, where can we find your book, Kim?
Well, it's available on Kindle right now on Amazon. The paperback is not available till June on Amazon. However, you can get a paperback on my website, and my website is wildvictoriousheart.com. And I write a blog and different things on there, and you can also contact me through my website.
Wonderful. And we'll have the details and the links in our Facebook posts and in the YouTube posts when it comes up. So that'll all be, if you didn't catch it right now, you can catch it again when we post it and stuff like that.
Check it today. It'll be up today.
Yes, it'll be up as soon as I get to it.
Yes.
hopefully within the next couple of days it will be up. But thank you, Kim, so much. This has been such a cool interview.
Oh, you're welcome. It's blessed my heart, and thank you so much for having me, both of you.
No worries. Have a good one, Kim.
Okay, thanks.